Hey guys, OG Albino here, bringing you guys a draft analysis for our APA Little Cup Wi-Fi Season 6, I believe, is team. So for those of you who didn't see our video, maybe it was a month ago, a couple weeks ago, I uploaded a Little Cup Draft League that I play in on Showdown. It's a little bit more high competition than this, but I uploaded LCU draft content and people seem to enjoy it again. And if you don't know, and if you've been around for a long time, I used to upload a lot of this league on the channel, as well as the league that I run alongside T-Row, and it's Little Cup but on Wi-Fi. So I figured it'd be a nice of the best of both worlds. We still get the visual aspect of Wi-Fi, but we're gonna get to play with LC and things like that as well, which I think you know, it's a good change of pace, especially at the end of the generation. We've been playing standard, maybe a little bit of Ubers here and there for a good 3 years now of this Gen 8 format, but now we're gonna get to, you know, play a little bit of Little Cup, which will be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed today's draft analysis, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as sub to the channel. We're really close to 1,000 subs, and I would really appreciate if you helped us push along to that point. Once we hit 1,000, we're gonna be doing a giveaway of 2 copies of Scarlet and Violet. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and, you know, be a part of that when that happens, go ahead and drop a like, or go ahead and drop a sub. Alrighty, that being said, let's do it. Preface before this. 1, Little Cup is very much so different than standard draft. There are different cores, offensive cores, defensive cores, styles of play and things like that. It's a much more offensive, fast-paced, momentum-based metagame, built around offensively positioning yourself better than your opponent. Things are too low-leveled, and damage rolls are too high for teams to be able to kind of, and Pokemon are just too frail for teams to be able to defensively check everything. So if this team looks incredibly offensive and looks like it has some holes defensively, it will. And that's just how Little Cup kind of goes. I'm actually a lot better drafting in LC than I am in Standard because there's not as many things to account for defensively, which I usually end up forgetting about. I'm really good at drafting offensive synergy, though. So that's something to keep in mind, too. We have an item clause, so when we play in these Draft League games, we can only bring 2 of the same item. Now, I don't like item clause in Standard Draft League format, but in a Little Cup format where Berry Juice and Eviolite are so much better than everything else, it's almost a little bit needed to, you know, kind of force a little bit more creativity, or we're going to have 3 and 3 or 4 and 2 of those items every single week. So there is an item clause. And 3, we went a little buck wild this season. Now, if you guys have seen past seasons of the APA Little Cup, we typically ban the top end stuff that's deemed a little bit too broken in draft. This season, it's the last season before Gen 9, we decided to allow everything that was borderline allowable. So that means we allowed Grookey with Grassy Glide, which is typically banned in draft. We allowed Vullaby, Mienfoo, Ghastly, Cutiefly with Quiver Dance. We allowed Porygon. We allowed Rufflet, and we allowed, what was the last one? Oh my goodness. Belly Drum Zigzagoon was another one we allowed. So we allowed a lot of top end, really broken things, and we only had 12 teams in the league. So some of these teams are absolutely juice. Our team was one of them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and show our first pick. We had 3rd pick overall. First pick, Amel took Grookey, which is fine. I didn't really want to use Grookey. Second pick, my buddy Ant, ITZ Wateva, unfortunately took Porygon, which is what I really wanted to use. So I took the best of both worlds. I took a Pokemon that I've never used before. It was the only Pokemon that I hadn't used before on this tier list this season, in Mienfoo. I'm really excited to use this thing. For those of you guys who follow Smoke on LC, this is like the Lando T of that tier, the Primal Ground on that tier, where it's on like 90% of teams. It's almost a requirement in Smoke on. In draft, it's typically a little too broken, but in this format, we're allowing everything. So we got Mienfoo at pick 3, which is awesome. This thing gets great priority in Fake Out. It can knock off U-turn and close combat / high jump kick for free, which is really solid. Fighting tends to be one of the most potent typings offensively in the tier. There are very little fairies, and the psychics don't want to be knocked off because, again, things are so frail because of their, you know, just natural base stat total. Knockoff and U-turn kills 99% of them. So really it's just like fairies and poisons that check Mienfoo. And again, they typically don't have recovery in the poison department, and there's not a lot of fairies that are actually even viable in this format. So we can kind of knock off U-turn and close combat / high jump kick over everything. We can Swords Dance and bulk up. We can do a bunch of really cool things. We can taunt, and we're just an overall great glue piece. It's a great pivot. It pivots in on a lot. Fake Out, maybe forces something out, and then U-turns out, and it's just a phenomenal facilitator versus a million things. Like I said, Regen is still the best ability in the game. Even in Little Cup, a much more offensive metagame, Regen plus Switch is always going to be very good. So I'm super excited to use this guy. We're naming it Amel because Amel used it last season. We voted to allow a few things last season. Amel used it and absolutely killed with it. These nicknames are all going to be goons though. So yeah, that being said, move on to the next pick. I wanted to grab something that really punish the switch-ins of Mienfoo, things that I could really punish as I U-turn out and go into this Pokemon in Pawniard. I know for those of you, again, who saw that last Little Cup video, you saw that I just brought Pawniard to a championship in LC Evo in an undefeated season. I actually really love this thing. That was the first time I used it. This is the second time. It really bullies all of those fighting resists and fairies and psychics. It doesn't necessarily switch into the fairies very well, but again, we shouldn't need to as long as we're playing aggressively enough and calling those switches with U-turn and things like that. And it also bullies those poison types and actually typically finds free setup opportunities on them, which is awesome. Defiant is a phenomenal ability. No intim pivoting, no defogging on my team, which is awesome. I wasn't able to snag any webs this time with Poniard, which I think is where it really thrives, but we were able to you know, grab it with a really good offensive pair in Mienfoo, and we should be able to bully a lot of things. Sucker Punch is great priority. We can Sword Stance up, we get Knock Off, Brick Break, and I think Psycho Cut as well. So a bunch of great coverage, is really strong offensively, has good defensive typing, and can pivot on a lot of things. We just have to make sure we get a good fighting resist and a good ground resist, because we don't have those right now. But yeah, it's a great Pokemon. Round 3 though. This was crazy to me, because remember I said we allowed all of these broken Pokemon. I expected them to go as like the top 7 or 8 picks or whatever they ended up kind of, how many there ended up being. But there was one that was still there in round 3. And now keep in mind, this means I have 3 tier 1s, which means I am forced to get at least 3 tier 4s, bottom tier Pokemon. We actually revamped tier 4 and made it a lot more usable and things like that, which is good. Because I don't know if I would have done this with the old tier 4. But now that I did, this is a Pokemon I've also never gotten to try, and a Pokemon I think should have went round 1. So getting it round 3 is pretty amazing, and that is going to be Zigzagoon right here. For those of you who don't know, Zigzagoon is actually banned in Smogon LC right now. The combination of Belly Jump plus Extreme Speed in a tier like Little Cup is phenomenal. Now, Normal is also a very potent offensive typing in the tier, and Normal spam in general is very good, as you saw with like my Meowth last season in LC Evo. Because there's not a lot of good normal resists, and typically good offensive normals have good coverage for rock types at the very least, which Zigzagoon does have in Seed Bomb, and Meowth had like Water Pulse and things like that, which is why it was so great. So, it has coverage in that regard. It has Thief for ghost types. It does struggle with steel types. It only can dig them. That's the only thing it can really do them, but still, +6 extreme speed is really strong, and the rest of our team does bully those typings so far. Every kind of normal resist or immunity, Mienfoo plus Poniard kind of beats down. So I think this Pokemon's absolutely amazing for our team. I think it's going to do really well. I'm hoping I can position some Belly Jump sweeps. It was a really steep price point, so we're really running low on points already. But, you know, I'd rather go a little bit more top heavy, have a broken top 6, and then have some great role players who can kind of fill in the gaps and, you know, certain matchups and things like that. So I'm super excited to use Zigzagoon. Now, who knows, the next time I'll get a chance to try this thing again, especially as a round 3 pick too. So that's great. Next up, we have Anorith right here. I wanted to grab some good speed. Something over base 17 is kind of the benchmark for something fast. So think like in standard, like something that has 115 speed. I equate that to base 8, or mods that hit 18 speed in Little Cup, and Anorith is one of them right here. It gives me a Stealth Rocker, it gives me a Rapid Spinner, it gives me more Knock Spam. It's very solid with SD, it gets Aqua Jet for priority, so our whole team is just priority at the wazoo right now, all 4 members. Which is great for opposing scary setup sweepers, which is awesome. Particularly Aqua Jet for the Rock-type Shell Smashers, which the rest of our team's priority did not really deal with very well outside of Poniard, so Aqua Jet's a really cool tool, even if we're not necessarily a rock type ourselves. It's a decent pivot with Berry Juice. It can't be crit with Battle Armor, and even some Swift Swim shenanigans can ensue. So this thing's going to be really solid. We got to make sure that we kind of cover its typing a little bit better defensively, being that we have a rock type that is, what do you call it, neutral to flying. We do have Poniard, but we want to take a little bit of pressure off of Poniard as well. Now, at least grab some other kind of flying check as well. So that's going to be Anorith. Pretty simple mon there. Next up, we have Baltoy. I love Baltoy. I know I already have Rapid Spinner and Anorith that I just grabbed, but never hurts to have 2 and let Anorith go a little bit more offensively in some matchups. Baltoy is phenomenal as a Edgequake switch-in. We did not have a ground resist up to this point. Our entire team got murked by the move Earthquake plus Rock Slide, and Baltoy doesn't really do that, which is awesome. It Levitate plus Ground plus Psychic is really solid. It's decent offensively in this tier 2 because, again, the lower base stat total of everything makes it hit a little bit harder with great coverage as well. So it can be very solid offensively. It can Rock Polish. It's great with Rapid Spin, Stealth Rock, and like I said, it has great coverage. It's a very simple mon. Great little tier 3 roll pick. I've drafted this thing a million times, and I've enjoyed it every time. So hopefully it does well again. Next up, we grabbed Frillish, a very, very solid Pokemon. I wanted a good fighting check, and Frillish is going to kind of help me out with that. This, in conjunction with the Baltoy, is going to be very, very solid in kind of checking those mons. It gives us a good water resist / immunity with Water Absorb, which again, the rest of our team did not deal with water type moves, so it's this is at least giving us pivots into these attacks. Well, I mean, that might not be catch-all hard stops to all these things. We at least have pivots and ways around things to make our opponents think twice, or as well as put ourselves in a good offensive position and stuff like that. So Frillish is kind of here to do that. It can do some cool stuff like Choice Scarf, Water Spout, and again, almost everything can be a Scarfer in this tier because of how close everything's stats are together. So Scarf, Water Spout is a very viable option on Frillish if we can keep hazards away, and we have double spin right now, so I could definitely see us keeping those hazards away, and we murder every rock type that's going to typically be the rocker in every matchup. So yeah, Frillish is very, very solid in that regard. Very good Pokemon. Next up, we have that secondary Flying Resist and Manectric. This is going to be our first Tier 4 pick. I think it's pretty solid as a Tier 4 with Lightning Rod as well as an Electric Immunity, which our team didn't appreciate super as well, besides Baltoy, I guess. But it's always nice to have more immunity. Static as well is a great way to punish U-turns from those flying types. And the reason I'm kind of harping on flying types so much is because it tends to be one of, again, the more potent offensive typings in the tiers. So having as many checks of that as humanly possible is very nice. It gives me a great way to break through bulky waters that I didn't really have so right now. So that's also a really clutch option, and it can switch through things and cripple things. It can't really hit grounds, but in LC, like I said, if I flamethrower them, they're going to take a clean 40%. So if I catch them on the switch with that, you know, we could be in a pretty decent position. Next up, our second Tier 4 in Zubat. This is going to give us our flying type. It gives us a good Scarfer. As you see, I put like a Scarf on this generic set. And these are all generic sets. I just kind of like threw together and genned in because I didn't feel like making slides. But what do you call it? Yeah, Zubat is very, very solid in that regard as a like low tier flying type option. It gets inner focus, so it's immune to Intimidate. It gets infiltrated and get rid of go through screens and things like that, which is very nice. It gives us a defogger if we really do end up needing like an emergency defog on a Choice Scarf Zubat. We can definitely do so. Very simple mod. It's a Tier 4 pick. It's not going to come to a ton of games, but I think considering the Tier 4 pool, it's one of the better ones in the tier, so we might as well pick it up. Next up, we got our mascot pick. If I could have named this myself, I would have, but I named it after Alex because he claimed it. I love me some Bagon. Now, is he the best in the world? No. But is he damn cute? Yeah, he is. And he's very fun to use. If you can position that Dragon Dance sweep with it, it's very, very strong. It's a little bit slower, and it's outpaced by a lot of Scarfers, which is tough, and it's not the bulkiest thing in the world. But with Sheer Force plus Fire Fang and then Dragon Stab, you realistically hit the entire tier just like that. Like I said, there's very little fairies, so offensive dragons can be very solid in some instances. The reasons they're not like a top tier offensive type in the low cut tier is because there's not a lot of good ones, stat spread wise, because typically, pseudos in particular, their first forms are very, very weak. But Bagon's one of the ones that are usable, so we're going to use it because I like him a lot. He's really cool. And yeah, it's going to come in, it's going to try and Dragon Dance up, and it's going to try and squeeze in a couple weeks. I used it not this season Evo, but the season before, and it had some really fun games. I think that's a video on the channel too. So I'm hoping it could at least get me a couple wins. And again, mascot pick is always a good idea. You always end up winning if you do the mascot pick, right? And then lastly, we got our last Tier 4 and little Wimpod right here. Look at this cute guy. It's another Pokemon that has 18 speed, which is really valuable for that bottom tier. It also gives me spikes, which I did not have already. Now, getting up multiple spikes isn't always the best idea in LC because it's so fast-paced, and giving up 2 turns to set up 2 layers of hazards just for like 6% more, whatever is it, isn't super valuable. But having a rock and spikes up can be very, very valuable, or at least one of them. Say we have bad rocker matchups, or we can't really keep up rocks in a matchup. Wimpod can come up clutch in that regards. It gets Aqua Jet for priority, Waterfall, and yeah, it's a pretty solid mod. I like it a lot. But what else did I even put on this set? What else music? Oh, Taunt. Fast Taunt too, baby. Let's go. But yeah, that's going to be Wimpod. And that's going to be the team. I think it's a lot of fun. We can scroll through it here while I outro. I think it's a lot of fun. I think our top 3 are like Giga Broken. And then we have some great, great pairs alongside them. So I'm hoping we can grab another LC championship. 2 in a row would be pretty clean. And I didn't have a very good LC Wi-Fi season last season. So I would love to kind of retake my crown. Before last season, my worst record in this league in particular was 8-2, and then last season I went like 4-6. This week's only 8 weeks, so hopefully we can go 8-0. That's the plan. I'm at least gonna shoot for it. But yeah, next week our first game against 8 players should go up in about a week. And yeah, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like. If you're new, drop a sub. I'll see you guys next time.